Hello and welcome to Financial Planning for Canadian Business Owners. So today on the show is not specifically about technicals. It is part of a three-part series I am doing on basically where to find advice from qualified financial planners. And to do that, I am profiling three different organizations in Canada that basically financial planners basically have to participate with or opt into in order to be financial planners. And today on the show, I have Aaron Hector, the the president of the Institute of Advanced Financial Planners. Now, full disclosure, I am a director of this organization as well, so I am intimately tied to it. I've spoken to many of their conferences, and I've been there for a long time and for a reason. And we're going to talk about what that reason is when we talk to Aaron. So, Aaron, thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me on, Jason. I'm looking forward to chat a bit about the IAFP and the Registered Financial Planner designation.
So that's an important point. I'm going to start there. So the IAFP, tell us about the IAFP and the RFP in particular.
So the Institute of Advanced Financial Planners is really the governing body for the Registered Financial Planner designation. So it'd be comparable to what I think was probably more commonly known as FP Canada's relationship with the Certified Financial Planning designation.
Yeah. So one is a credentialing body. The IAFP is credentialing body. The credential is the Registered Financial Planner designation. But we're also a membership body, right? Like when you become an RFP, you're also a member of the IAFP. It's a bit of a difference. But let's talk about both of those. I mean, let's talk about the RFP. What is the RFP, and why should Canadians looking for advice care?
So the RFP is a financial planning designation in Canada. First of all, it's intended to be quite a high level designation for financial planners. The distinguishing factor, I think one of the main ones at least, would be that you have to be actually a practicing financial planner. So it has to be your primary vocation. So throughout the year, that's your job. You're providing financial advice to Canadians and trying to help their problems. It can't be a side gig, and you need to attest to this annually. Also, you also have to have either a PFP or a CFP to apply to get your RFP.
So it is I'm going to say secondary, but it's an after the baseline financial planning designations that exist. It's after that one would to achieve this. Okay. So let's talk about what it takes to become an RFP. So what is the qualification in order to become one?
So first of all, as I already mentioned, we have said that you have to have your CFP or your PFP to apply. You need to have character references from other seasoned financial planners in Canada, one of which is a RFP currently. You need to basically be able to show that you have a level of expertise. So to do that, we have a technical exam, we have a ethics exam, and you need to submit a written financial plan, which then goes through our peer review process, which is fairly rigid, I would say. The pass level on the first submission is really quite low. Some people have passed first try, but the numbers on that are quite low. And it's a way for us to, make sure that we're not just giving the RFP designation out to anyone who applies. They really need to show that they're at a certain level.
Yeah. And, the failure rate is not an indication of a lack of ability. It's somehow just, I think what's provided is a guideline for what we're looking for is very, very comprehensive. And oftentimes that sort of planning is done not all in one meeting. It's done in several meetings or over the course of an engagement. So what's usually different is the need to compile all that work into one report, right? Which oftentimes, has to be repackaged. Things may get left out. Sometimes things are not hitting a certain standard. It is what it is. But nevertheless, the point is that we're basically testing you on your ability to do the actual work, not just pass an exam.
That's right. Yeah. And I think for prospective RFPs, it's a good process to go through because you get some feedback and, it really helps you to elevate maybe what you're currently doing and what you're currently presenting to clients.
I would agree with that. I mean, one of the experiences I had that really kind of helped me elevate my planning was actually not just the RFP, but also the financial planning awards when they were around. The fact that I was getting back my work with critical review. I mean, how often do we get the opportunity to get a bunch of, top level planners review your work and actually say, hey, you need to change this, or you left this out, or, I mean, and again, I don't want to scare clients off by saying that, these people were doing the wrong job. Not at all. Oftentimes it is the right job. It's just, there's other things we can always consider. There's other ways we can explain things. There's other ways we can demonstrate things. There's other aspects of the financial world that can be brought into the conversation that sometimes are left out.
Yeah. I kind of parallel it to someone who goes out and applies for life insurance. If you have to go through a medical at that time, that's kind of a nice ancillary benefit of applying for insurance is you get an assessment of your health at that moment in time as well.
You laugh. It's hilarious because all the guaranteed standard issue companies out there have done everything they can to make everybody terrified of medicals. Go through a medical. It's like, wait a sec. Like, you want to go through a medical because, like, either A, you're perfectly fine and you're getting endorsement, or you're discovering something. And if you discover something, that might be the early discovery that saves you from that thing.
That's right.
Right? That's an extreme, of course, but it is what it is. Okay. So in addition to that, there's also an exam, right?
Yep. Yeah. Technical exam. That's correct. So that, technical exam would be just to verify that you have the technical skills to, know what you're talking about. And then there's also an ethics exam, which, we want to make sure that those who hold an RFP are, highly ethical financial planners. And so part of that process is guiding people along through, our ethics standards of our organization and making sure that they understand what we stand for before we're signing them up.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's what it means to become an RFP. It's basically, you've done all this. You've literally, peer reviewed. You're literally having your work peer reviewed, advised upon, iterated upon, but nevertheless, you're basically being bestowed this upon you by other qualified professionals who do the work. Okay, so that's the RFP. Let's talk about the IAFP and how it supports RFPs in their mission.
So there is, first of all, an ongoing discussion forum that members are allowed to participate into. And because the level of the RFP is quite high, the people who participate in the forum are also very well established in their careers and have a lot to offer each other. So, just kind of going back over the last couple months, I was curious, what kind of conversations gone on in the forum, and, lots of referrals to respected third-party people like, I need an accountant for a client in this kind of area in the city of Victoria. Can you help me? Or, I need help thinking through something with RCAs, so retirement compensation arrangements, or can you help me figure out how to best model a IPP using the planning software? These are the kinds of discussions that are going on. And so, those are just some of the recent ones that I'm seeing on the forum here. But, the capital gains inclusion rate change was discussed at length this year as well. Depending on what's going on in the industry or what's going on in the marketplace in Canada, there's going to be discussion going on about that. And you get this kind of well-rounded membership that's happy to help each other out. It's really a very collaborative environment, I would say.
Yep. And I would say, participating in both that forum and several other forums in this country and other countries, what I will say is that we're not asking basic questions there. We're asking questions that are very difficult, quite honestly, to answer, or very specialized. And the answers that come back from people who literally have walked that path before and know it at a very high level. So I would say it's not a quantity forum. It is definitely a quality forum. If you have a really technical question, odds are you're going to get a really technical answer.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's the IAFP and out support. So we also support it through, I think, what I would call probably the premier conference for advanced planning in the country. There's other conferences I don't want to take away from. I mean, that are great. But at the same time, I think we do a pretty good job of covering off some pretty sophisticated stuff when it comes to taxation and practice management in other areas.
That's right. Yeah. So it's our symposium, and it's typically held in the fall. So the last couple of years, it's been sort of in late September. This upcoming year, again, will be at the end of September for 2025. The one thing that is also a little different now is that it's in person. there are not many opportunities to attend conferences for financial planning in person in Canada at a high level.
Mhm.
But if you can't attend it in person, it is offered on a hybrid basis, so you can also attend virtually. So kind of whichever way you're able to make it work, there's an option for you.
Excellent. Okay, so we've talked a lot about basically the organization in general, but let's talk about the benefits of working with an RFP. So again, we're not trying to take away from any other organization here that's credible. There's plenty of credible organizations, plenty of other credible options, but what differentiates the RFP professional?
Yeah, so first of all, just verifying, I think that the person, it is their primary vocation. This is important. It's not that someone is doing some kind of ad hoc planning on the side or anything like that. They need to attest that it's what they're doing day in, day out. The fact that they've passed their submissions, I think, confirms that this person has some chops, right? That you're dealing with.
Mhm.
Also, the ethical standards that we require, I think, are quite high, and we are actually in the process currently of elevating that further. So we're introducing a fiduciary standard to our membership. It's not in place yet, and we're doing work on it. So I can't speak a whole lot about the specifics to that because we're in the process of getting the work done. We've got a focus group that we're participating in currently. But we're moving in that direction, and we're really pleased to be continuing to elevate we're trying to elevate the profession in Canada, essentially.
Excellent. So we'll get back to the fiduciary responsibility in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about the comment about it being a primary thing that the planners do. I mean, I think what the average advisor or the average consumer might not realize is that an advisor can absolutely get a designation, but that designation doesn't necessarily tie to the work being done. So
Right.
they could go out and get another designation in financial planning and then basically just focus on nothing but investments for the rest of their career, nothing but insurance for the rest of their career, do
Yeah.
just product sales, not actually do any actual real planning, as opposed to actually being able to produce a actual financial plan, which is a skill set in its own.
That's right. That's right. And with some designations, as long as you're doing your CE credits, that's all it takes to basically renew every year. Whereas on our side, we do have 30 hours of CE credit requirements annually, but then you have to attest each and every single year that it's still your primary vocation.
I think, frankly, to get to the level where you'd actually get through the exam and qualify for it, frankly, if you stop doing that, it would be. I think it's pretty low probability, right? You're not gonna get to that level and just be like, okay, I got the RFP. I'm going to walk away and just take my credential and not do this work anymore. So you have someone who's skilled at those technicals, which is great. Now let's go back to the fiduciary responsibility. So that was I mean, softball question here because I've long been an advocate of this and written about it publicly. But let's talk about why that's important and why what the decision to basically make that change, where that came from.
Yeah. So this is something I think that in the Canadian landscape, it's been missing for a long time. And you look around at the marketplace, and so in the US, the CFPs there had to adopt a fiduciary standard. It's quite a few years ago now, but don't quote me on the year, but I want
2019-ish,
to
I
say,
think. Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking 2019. Um, and more recently here in Canada, FPAC came in and they have fiduciary pledge, which I think that you can see the success of that initiative just based off of membership growth. And our organization is looking at it and said, we want to help to further the profession, and um, the credibility and the professionalism of financial planning advice in Canada. And we felt like this was an important initiative to undertake. So really, it's about protecting consumers. And if we can be an organization that is willing to kind of up our standards to do so, we're very happy to do it. But it doesn't just happen overnight, right? So there are lots of different considerations that you need to make as an organization as you're doing this, and that's kind of the work that we're currently undertaking right now. So it's not in place currently, but we're moving in that direction. with the goal for 2026 renewals.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to attesting to that. Anyway,
Likewise.
yeah, absolutely. And frankly, I mean, I can get on my soapbox here and say all the time, at the end of the day, if we can't be held to the highest standard of basically dealing with our clients and putting their needs ahead of our own, then you know, frankly, we shouldn't be in this business. This business shouldn't exist, in my opinion. And frankly, if you were to poll the average person on the street, do you think your financial planner is legally held to a standard that basically they have to put you first at all times? The answer is going to be hopefully like, I think so, or I should hope so. Hey, like,
I think most clients would incorrectly assume that that standard is already in place.
agreed. So let's talk about basically some tips for how to look for a financial planner. So basically, someone's looking for advice, looking for planning services. What are your kind of tips for how to basically go about selecting the right planner?
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, you want to be working with someone that has a solid credential. And I absolutely think that the CFP, very high level financial planning designation. And I think that the RFP is another very high level financial planning designation. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those. I think membership in affiliations like FPAC, really all three of the organizations that you're profiling in your series, Jason, look for people who are part of those organizations. Because you want to have a person who is taking their career seriously. And I think if you're a member of the CF, if you have your CFP, have your RFP, member of FPAC, that alone, I think, shows a prospective client that you're taking yourself seriously as a financial planner. You're at a high level of aptitude in what you do, and you're looking to collaborate with other financial planners who could help you if you don't have all the answers at that time. And like that collaborative part of being part of, I would say FPAC does this really well, and our organization with our membership forum does this really well also. The fact of the matter is that the subject matter with financial planning is extremely broad. You can get questions about any one of like 1,000 different micro topics. And if you just haven't had the experience in your career as a planner yet to come across that, you need to have a network that you can go to ask for support. And I'd be the first to admit that I haven't come across everything that I could come across. And I've been in the industry for, closing in on 20 years now. And I'm still going out to my network through forums or friends who are in the industry to ask them for their take on different situations frequently. So, these organizations have searchable member directories. So you can, like, for the RFP, you can go right on our website, go find a planner, look for the city that you're in. I mean, if you want to work with someone.
Don't limit yourself to postal code. That's unfortunate. Most people do, but it's still is not geographically bound.
There are searchable directories there, and remote access is becoming more and more common these days too, where you maybe don't have to physically be in the same city either. But looking for someone that has, a higher level financial planning designation and part of the right organizations, I think that would be a really good starting point to connecting with someone that you should be able to trust.
Absolutely. And I think expanding a couple of things, you kind of touched upon it, is that, we can't see everything. I mean, unfortunately, this industry often especially when running their business, we educate people broadly, which is great because you should have a broad knowledge. But in actuality, the only way you get to know the nuances of a client situation is by honing in on specific cases, right? So we can't be all things to all people. We can be a lot of things to a few people. So I think I'm going to add into your saying, like, find someone who's very used to dealing with people in your situation, right?
Great point.
Yeah. If you're, people will always say the same thing. Deal with high net worth families, executives, and business owners. Well, those aren't niches. Those are anyone with money. So let's talk about your specific needs and what specific history or examples that you have of dealing with people in that situation. I think that is incredibly vital.
That's right. Like if you have a business, not all financial planners are comfortable giving advice to business owners. If you are an executive who have, RSU or PSU type
Yep.
forms of compensation, not all planners will have experience working with that as well. Um, we have friends who have carved out niche areas of practice that they really focus on. Thinking of Aravind, our friend, who has created a niche around serving midwives. So,
Hmm.
everything that, if you're a midwife, he would be fantastic because he's created a practice to serve that demographic. So,
Hmm.
those are the kinds of things where you can really kind of tune into a planner who is very familiar with your situation.
Absolutely. And people think, there are, while those people situations there's a lot of general challenges. The specific challenges are amazing. So, I mean, Aravin's even written articles on the impact of menopause and the midwife's ability to work, something that would never crossed my mind. I met other planners, one in particular who becomes the mind, who specifically who works, specializes in dealing with real estate agents and in Ontario with their new incorporation status, which many of them, set up and have given no thought on how to properly manage those things and the liabilities within. So, there's a lot of special, no one is a fully unique snowflake every time in planning, but a lot of snowflakes look similar to other snowflakes in different categories. So the reality is that if you can find someone who's got experience in dealing with that specific problem and can speak to it top of mind and address, you sit in the room with them and they're already telling you about things that you sit back and go, oh my God, you get what I'm saying. You get where I'm coming from. That's the kind of reaction you hopefully want to have.
That's right. Like I look at it here in Calgary. Um, I just naturally have quite a few clients that work for Canadian Natural Resources, and it's nice whenever I work with a prospect from that company because I know exactly what their compensation metrics are, and there's a lot, and they
Yeah.
typically, because there's a lot of share-based vestings without tax being withheld at source. There's always tax issues and tax installments, and people are trying to figure out how does it all work. And I can take their it's not solely anymore, share work statement,
Mhm.
and kind of follow or lead them through exactly where the tax events are going to happen because I've seen it so many times. That's just one example, but right off the bat, I can sit in front of someone who I have never met before, and I probably know more about their compensation structure than they do. And what a great way to connect with a financial professional if you can connect with someone who already understands your situation.
That's it exactly. It's that kind of personality, not personality, but skill match that you want to look for ideally. Okay. So basically, before we wrap up, I guess just to give you one last final pitch on why to deal with an RFP and why the IAFP is a place to looking for advice.
Um, so I would say you just know that you're dealing with someone who has the experience that they would require to hold their RFP to actually get it in the first place. They're part of a community that is very willing to help each other, and um, it's their primary vocation. So, and they're holding themselves to a high ethical standard as well. Let's say if you were to sum it up, that would be a great way to do it.
Excellent. Aaron, thank you for taking the time and, of course, all the work that you and I'm including myself in the circle here. Everyone at the IAFP does. I mean, what can I say? I can't just pat the IAFP in the back without taking some credit. And basically, trying to help elevate the standards.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks. So that was today's episode of Financial Planning for Canadian Business Owners. Again, a little bit different. Anyone looking for advice, I want to be able to point here and say 3 organizations you can trust and look into and find people who work with them or at least certified by them or they're members of. And basically, at least that's giving you a higher probability of success in my mind. So as always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever your podcasts, including YouTube now. And until next time, take care.